Hello. Hello. How's it going? Welcome to week 5 of the SustainABLE book club. I hope you had a lovely week. I hope you managed to read a few more pages of the book. And so welcome to anyone here. I hope the live chat works because last week it wasn't working for someone. I would say if that's the case, just close YouTube and open it again, see whether that makes a difference. Or I got my LinkedIn open in case you have an urgent question or something you want me to answer. I will keep an eye on the messages there. So without further ado, I think it's time to start talking about selling. Or actually, we continue to talk about selling, following up from last week. But before I do that, just a reminder that I'm opening a new SustainABLE mastermind group. If you don't know what that is, it's a peer-to-peer support group made of sustainability enthusiasts and professionals, who's going to start catching up every other week from the 8th of September. We're doing live webinars. We're doing one-to-one coaching with me. We are doing a lot of challenges to put into practice skills that are key to sustainability professionals. So that's effectively what the aim of the group is to develop your sustainability soft skills so that you become unstoppable. And we're starting on the 8th of September. Now, for anyone watching the YouTube book club, I have a £10% discount code, which you can find in the description below. Or if you want, there is a free webinar that I'm hosting on the 1st of September. That you can join for free. Just have a look at the on LinkedIn or on the webpage, and I'm going to explain what this is all about. But it's a really cool group, and my current masterminders are having an incredible ride. They're really loving it, and they're changing their lives for the better. So saying that, so last week we started looking at selling sustainability ethically. Actually, the chapter in the book is Selling 101 for Sustainability for Technical People. This week we're going to look at how we can communicate the sustainability message better and what. So we're going to look at the business case for sustainability, which is something that I get asked about all the time. So hopefully this is a very important, a very key session for you all. As I said, feel free to type questions in the live chat. If that doesn't work, close YouTube, open it again, because sometimes it's quite temperamental. Or message me on LinkedIn, because I got that open too. So let's start from the fact that you, as a sustainability professional, are also a salesperson. We said that last week. Hopefully you're starting, becoming familiar with that concept. But the key here is that you are providing a service. What service are you providing? You are the curator of information out there. I mean, there's plenty of information out in the ether. And what you're doing is providing that filter. You're sifting through all this information for your clients' individual circumstances. So, for example, if you are dealing, and that's the example I got in the book. So if, for example, your client wants to make sustainable t-shirts, so there is no one way of going about it. And in a way, there is not an absolute answer to that. Yes, of course, there is a most sustainable material that you can use right now, which is probably bamboo, I would say. However, cotton has its own, probably, your client will say, oh, I want to sell, organic cotton t-shirts and they're sustainable. But that actually that's not the truth. That's what your client believes, because this is what probably has been he knows about. So you can say, well, actually there's bamboo, which is better, or even better, you can recycle clothes and make t-shirts. Hold on one second. What is the energy implication of that? What is the water implication of that? Is that any better or any worse than cotton or bamboo? Or perhaps you want to change your business altogether and do like a cloth swap business of some sort. The thing is, so the bottom line of this is, yes, it's true that there are some absolutes in sustainability, and it depends very much on the point in time we are in, because technology advances all the time. But it's also true that it depends so much on your individual client circumstances, because they might not want to do a swap business. They might, they might not have enough money to invest in bamboo, etc., etc. It depends very much. So every solution that you are going to propose to your client needs to be absolutely tailored to their needs. So what you do is to develop a roadmap for them. Because yes, there are lots of, as I said, the information out there is available pretty much for free for everyone, but the client will get confused. He won't know what you know about sustainability. But how can you communicate that message? And how, so especially if you are proposing a service and you're not being asked to propose a service, say you want to push, sustainability, or present yourself to a new client, or you're bidding for a job and, you want to convince them of something. Now, remember one fundamental thing, that people buy from people, not from companies. So although you might represent your company, it's never that the case. You never, company to company, you're actually person to person. As an example, if you watched Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or whatever it's called in your country, that is often not about the idea, or not just about the idea. It's actually about the entrepreneur that they engage with, these dragons judging people's ideas and pitches. Often they won't choose someone because they don't think he's likable enough, professional enough, they don't present, well enough, etc. It's not just about the numbers or the idea itself, it's actually about the person. And that demonstrates that actually your technical knowledge and what you know is only one element of the whole picture, as we started saying since the beginning. So it's very important, especially if you're not selling that it's something that is very tangible, where you can actually see the outcome immediately. For example, if you're selling, sustainability strategies or CSR packages, so corporate social responsibility or whatever that is, it's really important to master a number of techniques that will allow you to influence others in the process of selling that idea. When I use selling, I repeat that all the time. It's not necessarily you exchange money. It's actually you are proposing something to someone, or you might be selling a product or, your services. So the techniques. So we started last week looking at the type of people you can encounter, and we split the whole world into 4, if you remember the DISC method. Now, using that, so try and picture in your head and try and guess from their behavior and the way they speak and the way they, they walk, what personality your client has, or the person in front of you. In that, and match that with the right influencing technique. Now, the first 2 techniques are probably the most used and the ones that are, they have the major, the majority of chances of success. One is to use a no-nonsense approach. Probably is what you do anyway, is data-driven. So this is it. So you logically take your client from A to B. You logically tell them what's going to happen if they embrace your solution. It's very good for dominant people, so red type, as we defined them last week, compliant people, or blue people. They're not Smurfs, blue people. But the important key here is to use some storytelling to keep the data alive. So just putting in front of someone percentages and data is not going to get you anywhere at all. We're going to talk about storytelling in a little while in this session. The second technique is inspiration. So you can inspire others by showing them, for example, how other people, other companies have done it. You can inspire them by showing them what is the vision of, them embracing that particular solution or technology and what's going to happen. So you really work with the imagination of people. That's a very good technique for influential people. Because they are a bit more imaginative, and for steady people as well, because they have that empathetic, that more, dreamy side to them, if you want. If you combine these two, it's absolutely perfect. So if you combine data and facts with inspiration, I think you are on for a winner. However, in certain cases, you might want to use other techniques. For example, feel good. So you might want to use that technique to show that your client, how they will feel good at the end of the process. So, for example, how your solution aligns with their vision and how that's going to make them feel. Reciprocity, that's very useful when you're trying to influence a peer, someone on your same level. So you give them something, they give you something back. Asking. Sometimes involving your client in the decision process is actually a very good way of getting people on board, because they feel included. They feel that, they count for something. It's not just a decision that is dropped on them. So asking them for their opinion, asking them for what they think is very important. Another technique is you're not alone. So showing them a little bit how others have done it. So that's the classic case study thing. So you put together some testimonials, some case studies are always quite powerful to convince people, especially those that are a bit risk adverse, like blue people, the compliant people, but also the green steady people, because they're usually risk adverse. So if you show them that others have done it successfully by using your technology, your idea, then you are probably on for a winner. And the last possible method you can use in that sense, which I'm afraid a lot of my colleagues use to convince their clients, is authority or fear. So you said, I'm sorry, you have to do it. The law imposes it, you have to do it. Okay. It might be true that the law imposes it. However, if you go with the iron fist, you're not going to foster collaboration with your clients. So it's not a technique that I would suggest that you use very often. It might be part of your arguments, but it shouldn't be the only reason why they should come, they should come to you, or they should adopt your solution. Fear is the same. So beware of the consequences. If you don't do it, you're going to get fined, etc. Again, something you need to make them aware of if it's important. However, don't use that as the only way of convincing someone to jump on board with you. Okay, so these are the no-nonsense, inspiration, feel good, reciprocity, asking, you're not alone, and authority and fear are the main influencing techniques that you can use. Now, let's go ahead and look at one way, which is very, very powerful, in which you can actually tell your clients, or how can you construct your argumentation by using storytelling. Now, I'm not asking you to start once upon a time, etc., etc. Obviously not. But it's important to understand the value of storytelling for sustainability professionals. Why? First of all, because storytelling is the oldest way in human history for passing info from one person to the other one. Think of gossip. How come gossip is still, something so strong among people? Because telling stories is a very compelling way of sharing information. And the scientific reason for that is the storytelling releases in your brain oxytocin, which is the happy hormone, as it also gets friendly called. And is released when, for example, you hug someone, or in women when they give birth. So it's a hormone that makes you bond with the other person. And that's the same. When you do storytelling properly, you release oxytocin into someone's brain. And that's why we love movies. And that's why we love stories and romance and that sort of thing, because it releases that hormone in your brain. Now, the good thing with that for us, the technical people and sustainability people in general, is that oxytocin also builds trust in the person that tells, that hears the story. So you become more trustworthy, and that lowers their barriers towards you, and also eliminate their judgment. So all of a sudden, by telling a story, telling it well, obviously, you are actually increasing your chances of building a rapport with your client, which is the main thing you want to do in order to, to win them over effectively. The other thing is, when you tell a story, that particular thing becomes much more memorable. So that's why instead of just telling, some, I don't know, discovery or scientific breakthrough or whatever, that should always be, told alongside a story, for example, a case study, because that becomes a lot more memorable. People remember you, and also they trust you. And it's just, it's pure chemistry, actually, which is it's really fascinating. Bottom line is, if you just use fact and data, they have absolutely zero impact on your clients if this data and facts are not contextualized, so put in a context of a story and brought closer to our human nature. Again, we're humans, so we might as well use those sort of techniques. You could argue, said, do you know what? But I only have like a minute before my presentation, or I only have 1 minute presentation to tell. How can I tell a story in 1 minute? Okay, well, make those 60 seconds count. You can start with an anecdote, for example. That is a story. You can start with telling, something that is related to, the message you want to tell, maybe the story of someone else, or your story, or again, a case study is super powerful, or a testimonial. Those can be told in a very short space of time. Now, let's analyze a little bit what we mean by story, though, because again, I don't want you to think about dragons and princesses. We're not talking about that. We are rather talking about something that is told in a certain way. The key element that makes a story is the tension. So you need to keep the attention going by adding some form of tension in the middle of the story. So there is a marine biologist that turned filmmaker in Hollywood who's called Randy Olson, who came up with this acronym ABT, and, but, therefore. And he uses that to teach scientists to tell their stories better. So to tell their fantastic discovery in a way that actually people want to listen to them, instead of being a boring and, which is the classic way scientists present their stories, a fact after a fact after a fact, and there is no, there is no story there at all. So, and, but, therefore, what does it mean? So something has happened, and this other thing has happened. However, but, and that's the tension element, something different, something that changes and surprises you somehow. And then you tell what that is, the disruption, for example, or, an obstacle in what's happening. Therefore, is obviously the final, how that got sorted. So in the very, the most basic way, this is the most basic framework for constructing a story. So think about, especially the but, B-U-T. Think about that. How can you add an element of interest, an element of tension in the stories you're telling? Now, another way of telling stories, which is not very good, is when you get lost in thoughts and then you start using the DHY, which is despite, however, yet. So it's a pointless going on and on and on narrative, never gets anywhere. So that's the other end of the spectrum. So you got the end. So, the linear, one fact after the other one, super boring and really if you ask me, it's terrible. It sent me to sleep. You got the confusing despite, however, yet. And then you have the and, but, therefore, which is the most basic way you can tell a story. Now, we have a really nice dice game on the website if you go into the resources, which is really fun. You can play it by yourself or with someone to exercise the ABT muscle and to understand the difference with the and, or the despite, however, yet structure. And yeah, just go there, play the storytelling game, and you click, and the dice will give you different options. In one case, you can tell just a everyday story about your last weekend, or food, or pets, or whatever. And in the other one, you got options connected to sustainability. So I would say if you want to increase and improve your sustainability storytelling capacities, then go to the website and play our game. In more complex cases, though, obviously not all stories are just ABT, and but therefore, in the most basic form they are, but generally they have a more structured approach. And so it's worth at least understand how we can implement it, maybe when we got more time, or maybe when we are writing something, an article, for example. This is very much used by journalists or opinionists and people that actually write, or even, writers. So you have a structure in stories which starts with a hook. So, and that's actually very important in business as well, because if you want people to keep the attention going, or you want you to keep people's attention, then start with a hook. So why would people want to spend the next 5, 10, 15 minutes with you? What is the bottom line? What you want to demonstrate? Leaving a bit open, of course. You don't want to tell the whole story, but a little hook. Then you got the backstory. So how did you arrive to this point? Why you're there? Where do you come from, etc. Then you have the tension. So life as usual at one point stopped because something happened, a breakthrough, or an obstacle, or something not going well. For example, in a project, the whole team left, whatever. Or, for example, the material, there was a big monsoon and unfortunately, a tsunami, and unfortunately the whole supply chain got stopped. Or COVID came, and then, our whole life completely changed. So that's the tension point, okay? The suspense. So good stories keep you on the edge of your seat because they keep you there. Is the hero going to win the race or not? Is the hero going to win the whole story or not? So the suspense. Then you got the breakthrough. So something has happened that actually seems like, okay, this is the road we have to take. This is the path we have to take. Maybe an idea, an illumination, a very lucky encounter with someone. Then there is a journey. So what happens then? The hero goes on the path towards victory, and then finally victory. Now, obviously, in stories like movies, you have a reiteration of these steps. So you got continuous tension and suspense and breakthroughs, and tension and suspense and breakthrough, until you get to the point of victory, and usually lesson learned as well. So you are actually teaching something to people, even in even in cartoons. So you got some sort of morale. Okay, so if you do have time, if you do have space in your head, then try and use the proper structure for stories, because it's so much more compelling. Also worth considering some I'm trying to go down on my notes, and the whole thing is jumping. Archetypes. These are patterns that repeat in human storytelling. So any story has those elements. So every movie you will see, unfortunately, has the same sort of structure. However, some patterns repeat and can show can highlight different things you might want to highlight with your story. For example, coming of age. So after years and years of working on a project, for example, you reach a certain milestone. That type of archetype shows experience. So you've been in the field for a while, and strength as well, because obviously you managed to achieve something. You might have overcoming obstacles. So you show a story where you got several obstacles, and yet you reach a certain point, and that's showing resilience. You might want to show constant evolution. So because of all the obstacles, then you evolved, or your company evolved, or your project evolved, and that shows adaptability and resilience as well, if you want. Or true as it ever was. And that's when, a company, for example, has been established for years, or a technology is solid and sound and it's been there for years. That shows steadiness, and it shows trust as well, inspires trust in people. Or maybe you want to tell the story of a rebirth. So you, as a professional, changed completely career. You took that chance and you are all new now. So it's a story of rebirth. That's a new direction. It shows how you're willing to take risks and to take that new direction. Quest. So that's when you look for something, and it's quite, it's not straightforward, and you keep on looking for the right solution or the right thing, and that shows a renewed commitment and dedication to the cause. Okay, so you got coming of age, overcoming obstacles, constant evolution, true as it ever was, rebirth, and quest. Now, obviously, you're not going to remember that unless you're writing it down, which I hope you are, or you're highlighting in the book, because obviously that's the whole point of a book club. But there is also a crib sheet that you can download from the website that tells you all of this, including the typical structures, how you can start every bit of your story, what the archetypes are, etc. So hopefully you're going to find that useful, and it's free from the website. Language is important in storytelling, obviously, because the key principle is try and use simple language for being understood by anyone. But there are ways of understanding whether your writing language, your speaking language are actually are simple enough. There is something called readability score that you can actually Google. But there is a suggestion of website on the book as well that looks at the length of the words you're using, the jargon you're using, whether you're using unusual words, or whether your grammar is complicated or your phrases are too long. The simpler the language, the more straightforward the message, I would say, always. Clarity, simple language, you get where you want to get. And I mentioned in past sessions Steve Jobs and how he was amazing at making, his discoveries, basically, his technology really simple in the way he was communicating it to people. So take the plunge and do like he did. It's just, rethink about your language. Another important thing is when you talk about anything at all, if you are working with data, try and show only a few key data or a key few percentages, especially percentages. Enter in one person here and come out of the other one. Only 5% of people actually remember percentages. So don't be fooled, to think actually, they're going to think, I'm so clever because I've done all my research. Only the key percentages are going to be, useful to you. And in order to put everything together, if you have the opportunity, for example, if you are presenting to someone, don't be shy and use charts and visuals. So visuals are so important to connect your story. Of course, you could be a fantastic storyteller just, by talking, but especially with scientific material, it's always best to have a few visuals, a few charts, very clear, very explanatory, that show exactly what you mean. In the mastermind, for example, that I mentioned at the beginning, we have a whole session about how to make PowerPoint more powerful, all the techniques, how we deal with, complex data-driven topics, and how can you make those more palatable. So, just think about the mastermind sometimes. Join us. So the other thing is you need to start paying attention to stories around you. You can read magazines. You can pick them from social media. Be careful of the fake news, of course. You can use anecdotes in your life or others' lives as well. especially draw from your life. Now, when I was writing the book, it was interesting because it was just like going down a walk, down memory lane. A lot of anecdotes that I completely forgotten actually came up again because I wanted to describe a certain concept, and I was thinking in my life when I had something similar. Now, your anecdotes, your stories don't have to be drawn directly from sustainability. They could be from your personal life. They could be drawn from another sector. It's something that you might have heard at a conference or talking to someone. The important thing is they illustrate the point. Again, by telling a story, you're going to have all this beautiful oxytocin that gets released in other people and in other people's, and you're going to make yourself memorable. Okay? Okay, so that's for storytelling. Do you have any questions? Okay. Not sure again whether the live chat works or not. This YouTube is doing my head in a little bit, but it's only the last before the last one. Next week is the last appointment with the book club, guys. So this is it. Okay, so let's now go into the nitty-gritty of the what. So we talked about who we got in front of us. We talked about how to approach them. We talked about the influencing techniques and storytelling especially. And we're going to talk about what, so the business case for sustainability. Now, I heard plenty of time in my previous history in sustainability, how people are going, the usual argument is, oh, but adopt this strategy because it's going to save you energy and money and water in the long term. That's absolutely true in most cases. If you have a sustainability approach, a sustainable approach, it's going to save you money in the long run. But if you're talking to someone, for example, in my field, in construction, they want to build something and sell it the day after it's finished, do they care about the long-term sustainability? No, that's not the right argument for them. They might want to see the money immediately. They might want to spin the thing on the marketing side because they want to sell quickly. There are so many different benefits of sustainability that you just need to do your homework. All the stuff that we spoke about last week, all the stuff we spoke about this week, put it together and reanalyze what the needs of your clients are. So what did we say last week? That you have to know who you got in front of you, that you need to ask them why at least 3 times to really get to the bottom of their needs and their wants. That you need to analyze the project and using perhaps the PESTLE, remember the PESTLE, so political, economical, society, technology, legal, and environmental model, so that you understand exactly what is influencing the project. You need to understand where the company is in terms of evolution stage, both in terms of the company itself and their sustainability maturity levels. And then finally, we looked at how to influence others. Now, we need to understand what matters for people, okay? So once you do all this homework, you should have pretty clear what their needs are and what their wants are, which again, I said that already before. It might not be the same thing. Needs and wants might be 2 different things. And they might not even know sometimes what the needs and wants are. So you need to be there to discover those. Now, when you propose sustainability to someone, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the times is money the main barrier. They say, oh, we haven't got the resources, we haven't got enough budget, sustainability is a fancy add-on, or at least that maybe they don't tell you this, but they make you understand actually they don't care, and yeah, it's a nice to have, it's not necessary. Okay, fair enough. That's one of the barriers, it's fine. We need to understand how we can overcome that. Sometimes it's a question of mentality or general business culture in that particular company. They just aren't ready or geared for, a sustainable approach, or they have always done things in a certain way. They think they can't do it in a different way. Sometimes you got lack of managerial support. So actually someone within the company that is an advocate and other people that are absolutely not. And they create barriers there. And then you might have a bias towards sustainability. Maybe they don't understand what it is. Remember, one of the first sessions, we actually covered that. So why my clients aren't interested. They might be biased. They might have the wrong information. They might not know enough about it. So you really need to unpack why there is a barrier and what that barrier is. On the other hand, to your advantage, you need to also find out what potential drivers they might have to adopt your solutions. And again, go back to their needs. What needs do they have? And pair that, those needs with the right benefits. For example, do they need to make their name in the field because maybe they're new? Do they need to make money quickly? Do they need to increase the number of clients? Do they need to expand their markets to new sectors? Do they need to demonstrate that they have a good reputation? Do they need to manage their risks long term? All of this can be answered to with a sustainability solution. So what are the benefits? Now, they can be grouped into three, effectively, or split into three. One is the return on investment. The other one is risk, and the third one is growth. So benefits and sustainability can be return on investment, risk-related, or growth-related. We're going to look at them one by one. So return on investment, that means mainly when they get increased revenue or maybe an increased market share. Like I was saying, maybe they're looking to make more money or maybe to break into a new, a new sector, a new field or something. In both ways, you can show them how sustainability can, for example, increase their market revenue because there is an increased market demand. Consumers are becoming more and more sensitive, for example, to plastic and and pointless plastic, single-use plastic. So you can suggest to your client that by changing that, for example, their packaging, they will appeal more to consumers that are now sensitive to these sort of issues. And that will increase their revenue and that will increase their market share. They might be interested in accessing green finance. So lots of money is available for companies that actually behave in the right way and behave sustainably. So that's another good point. They might be interested in investing in or in divestment from fossil fuels, so in alternative technologies. I mean, you've seen how BP has sold its petrochemical part of the business. That's BP, British Petroleum. That means the world is moving forward. The world is moving towards renewable technologies. That's a huge thing. That means that more companies align with that, and they will arrive there before their competitors, which is part of their growth. So it's one of the three benefits of sustainability. The other big thing is saving money. When you adopt sustainability, often you have a reduction of cost in logistics, in waste, in materials, in energy, in water. So all of this equates to money. It can be monetized. And you've got lots and lots of examples in the book that relate to these things. Risk. So that's another big benefit. Why is that, though? Why sustainability can be a good tool for risk management? Because it imposes a lot of feasibility studies, constant monitoring, assessments of different kinds, whole life thinking. That really helps understanding how something like a new product, for example, is going to perform over its lifetime. So that will really make your clients focus on the end result and the impacts along the way and the potential risks along the way. Because usually when you have a sustainability project, you involve, or you have to involve, all the stakeholders from day one. So these people are going to be involved from the first day. That means that, for example, again, an example from construction. So, that's my bag. If I have the contractors involved, so contractors who build the building at the end of the process involved from day one, they can tell the designers whether something that they are designing will work or not in reality, which is something that, I tell you what, even in this day and age, rarely happens. If you have all the specialists, they usually get called in right at the end or before, a building go on site. That means that you're gonna de-risk your asset, because the design is gonna take into consideration things that otherwise they're gonna find out only at the end. And that's the point of using a sustainable approach. Best practice. So because sustainability imposes best practice, in most cases, it's a common sense way of doing things, is the ethical way, is the sustainable way. That means that the reputation of people involved in the project is going to improve. So and reputation, we know, is really important. It's probably the most important asset any company can have. So reputation will improve with sustainability. Finally, very important these days for people that invest in anything, really, it provides risk mitigation long term. So, for example, investing in a company that is not sustainable, like a clothing company that doesn't produce their garments in an ethical way, is not a good move these days, because that it's gonna, sooner or later that's gonna catch up with you. Or, for example, if you have a supply chain scattered around the world, making sure they operate sustainably is important, because you have the uncertainty of climate change these days. So if something is produced in an area which is prone to, to very extreme climate, it might be a problem for the supply chain and how you get your pieces to put together your product at the end. So sustainability, when it's applied, is very important to protect the investment of people long term. Because obviously, if you take into consideration climate change and what's happening in the world, the more we go ahead, the more risky certain things become. So operating sustainably can, to a certain extent, protect investments from these sort of risks. Any question, guys? Anything that you can, or comments? And I know sometimes the chat is a bit temperamental. If it doesn't work, please close and open again, or perhaps send me a message on LinkedIn, because I got it open just in case. Yeah, because the live chat has been very, very temperamental in the last couple of weeks. Finally, growth. So sustainability can be a fantastic growth means. First of all, it's a market differentiator. Still right now, although it should be common practice, it's absolutely not. So, for example, if I think about some clients I had in the past, universities, they wanted to adopt a sustainability strategy because they wanted to attract students. They wanted to be better than another university, in their same region that didn't adopt that particular strategy. Obviously, younger generations seem to be more engaged with sustainability, and so naturally they're going to be attracted by companies and institutions that show that they are walking the talk. You can attract tenants, and obviously the sectors of the market like vegans and vegetarians and people that really care about the environment. So I think right now it's actually a very clever move for any company to, even if you don't want to embrace the ethical side of it, but it's definitely a market differentiator, and that is going to open up doors in areas where that particular company hasn't been before. And definitely is going to make a difference, with their competitors. Another important element is the employee productivity and reduced staff turnover when a company adopts sustainability. And that could be in, okay, I'm going to go, Anmol, I'm going to go into your question in a second on books on climate change. So employees and productivity of employees is so related to the areas and the offices where they work. I mean, at the moment, with COVID, everyone is working from home, so it's relative in that sense. But when you talk about going into an office and working in an office, it's been demonstrated, for example, that connection with nature reduces absenteeism by 15%. And increases mental function by 25%. And yet, if you come to London, you will see that some open plan office buildings in skyscrapers, in very tall buildings, actually don't have access in the middle part of the buildings, don't have access to even a view, which I think is absolutely horrible. I can't think of anything worse than working 8 hours a day plus in a box effectively, and that is, it makes making people really sick. Think about that. Human beings are like plants. They need air, they need fresh air, they need water, and they need sun and light. Okay, so a sustainable approach that goes into the company ethos, including the place where they are, is so important for growth for them. Innovation. Now, sustainability stimulates innovation. Why? Because any limits stimulate growth. Think about that. Again, an example from construction. The Living Building Challenge, if you're familiar with that particular certification scheme, imposes that when you build a building, you can't use any products or materials from a certain red list. And that means any chemicals, any adhesive, anything that is vaguely harmful for human beings. Which means when you actually apply it, you come up with something completely new, because you have to bond, for example, a panel in some ways, dry lining in the walls. So, for example, how do you put together the material that is in there? Well, some people came up with potato starch to do that, which is innovative and fantastic. It comes from waste, because it's the peel of the potato they get starch. You get the starch from there. It's like a glue, and then you put together the panels that way. So any limits stimulates growth and innovation. And I think that's it, really. So if you look at the book, at the end of this section, there is a whole list. You can see, I think you see it upside, the other way around, but it's a long list of potential financial and return on investment benefits, risk management benefits, and brand and growth benefits. Have a look, because again, your ability as a professional will be to combine the needs of your clients with any of this. And don't go on and on and on with a long, long list of benefits, because I think you're better off choosing 3, like 2 or 3 very, very strong drivers for your clients, and just go with them. Okay, let's go with the questions. Books on climate change, as in technical, like explaining climate change and how it works. Because I think you don't even need to go into books. You can find everything you want online. There is plenty of information out there on how it technically works and what are the consequences. Is that what you meant? Like technically? I mean, the information is very much out there. And the IPCC is a very good website for finding out, for example, all about that. Let me think if there is. WWF got lots of resources. It's a very wide field, you're right, but it affects every sector everything in life, as you can imagine, from production of food to production of energy, to biodiversity, and and the very survival of our species and other species. There is plenty out there, and research on climate change has started in the 50s, so there is a lot out there. I can't think of one book in particular I can suggest, and if I can think about it, I will send it privately to you via LinkedIn, but right now I can't think of one. But I would just start from the website, because it's the most updated guidance out there, and the consequences. There is also a lot on the United Nations website, I remember, and anything to do with, for example, the Paris Agreement. There is the whole background research that concerns climate change and the increase of temperature by 1.5 degrees, or what are the consequences, and 2 degrees, etc., etc. So there's lots and lots of material out there. Any more questions, guys? Very important motivation for sustainable activities. Well, it should be the most important motivation. I would say that, not related necessarily to this, but as you can see, all I talked about today is not the ethical argument. I haven't said, tell your client that their children are not going to see, their 50th birthday anniversary, birthday. I'm not saying that, because that's an emotional, that's an emotional connection you can make with someone if you think they'll be receptive to that. However, you better and quicker, in a way, to use the other influencing techniques that are purely business related, where people, especially when people are absolutely business driven, like the red dominant types, or even the cautious types who are very data driven. Okay, you can connect emotionally, can use that as one of the arguments, but I think in order to reach your goals, you need to be ready to use other arguments beside the ones that you usually would use. And yeah, climate change is the most important thing we should really think about. Biodiversity follows suits. I think the two of them together, which, by the way, they are interconnected. Climate change, biodiversity in a way is interconnected with climate change, should be the absolute priority. I know that there is a lot of focus on plastic, which is terrible, is sad, and it does affect species anyway. But the priority is absolutely climate change. Another question, Liam. Oh, you can write this week on the chat. Last week you couldn't. Do you believe sustainability professionals are doing enough to improve legislation and government policies? No. I unfortunately believe we're not doing that. Too often we are closed within our own little boxes and our own little, 9 to 5 boxes. And we certainly in our limited capacity, we want to make a change, but there is no enough lobbying with government or legislation to enable them to really change. But we can definitely do more, especially people that know about it. What really saddens me is that lots of general members of the public who haven't got the technical preparation and technical knowledge that we have are the ones that join Extinction Rebellion, and they're really advocating for sustainability without really having any knowledge, which is fantastic, because that means that it affects them deeply at an emotional level. However, more of our sector should really be up there talking to the governments and making a difference. And yet, 16-year-old girl managed to make that stir in the world without any preparation and any technical knowledge. I think we can definitely do a lot more. We can go through our membership bodies. We could unite with, say, associations like Extinction Rebellion, movements like Extinction Rebellion. There is a lot more that can be done. I don't think we use our technical abilities enough to actually make a difference. And the problem, I think, is that we really quite, focus on our jobs, ourselves. It's a bit of and we think we can't make a difference, which is wrong. We can make a difference. we can always make a difference. There is a ripple effect. Look at Greta Thunberg, one person, millions of followers. You only start with one person. Anything else, guys? Okay. Oh, another one. It's really tough. Okay, actually, it's really tough to turn the normal trend around. So Nita Narain on Center of Science and Environment have documented the problems she faced, the world she struggled to bring attention towards sustainability. Yeah, it is a struggle. It is a struggle, but I promise if you try and practice a pollution of pesticide, absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to get people. I mean, look at COVID. I wrote a post on LinkedIn. I don't know whether you saw that today, but we're now used to, and I'll show you, we're now used to have this stuff on our faces all the time. Yeah. That's the new normal. That's a habit that we created in 2 months. We don't go out our homes without one of these. I hope not disposable. This is, something I made myself. A mask. Okay. What is the mask for climate change? What is the new habit for climate change? We haven't got that. We haven't seen, or even us, even professionals in this field, I don't think we realize how tough and how the challenges, and how it's really putting all our lives in danger. COVID is one little obstacle compared to what climate change can cause in the life for millions and millions, everyone, billions of people, everyone in the world. Okay, what is the new habit? Where are the things that we do on a regular basis that we don't even think about anymore, like a mask? Where is our mask for climate change? So we can do more. We can definitely do more, Liam. And yeah, it's tough sometimes because people don't see, and that's the other thing. Human beings, has been demonstrated, they haven't got future thinking. We think we do, but we don't. We are self-preserving all the time. We look at now, today, and today the problem is COVID. We could get ill tomorrow, fine. With climate change, it's a long-term thing. It's very hard to imagine a world that is not looking like the one we got right now. And we're very adaptable. So we don't see the changes that suddenly. Well, sometimes we do, you got flooding, you got, odd things, but people don't pay attention until it's right in front of their nose. That's the problem. That's the difficulty with convincing people about that. That's why I'm an advocate of actually using other arguments. Let's use the money argument. Let's use the growth argument. Let's use the marketing argument. I don't care. The important thing is that I've reached our goal, which for me is ethical. For the others would be money. That makes sense. Musk gonna steal that. Yeah, the mask for climate change. I just came up with it. I promise. It's a genuine. It's a genuine thing that and also I'm lucky because I got a drawer here with a mask in there. So anyway, the mask for climate change. Yeah. Okay. Fabulous. Guys, it's been a pleasure. I am so pleased the live chat worked. And for those that are watching this after the live, please pop any comments in the below, and I'm gonna answer any comments or questions you might have in the days and weeks to come. Now, next week is the last week. I really enjoyed spending my summer with you guys. I have to be completely honest. I really love this. We're going to talk about resilience and grit, which is very, very important, if not the most important thing to develop as a skill. People and project management as well, which is another good thing. And I'm going to talk about my crazy routines. So if you're curious about that, my waking up at 4:30 in the morning type of thing, yeah, you're gonna be in for a treat next week. But yeah, just a little reminder about the mastermind starting on the 8th of September. You're gonna get a discount to look at the box below the description for 10% off. It's a great group. It's really fun. I am coaching people. So if you want to make a change and you want to do it with other people in a fun environment, learning a lot of stuff and really developing yourself, think about joining the mastermind that starts on the 8th of September. And thank you very much. It's been very good fun. I'll see you next week. Ciao.